Well, I guess he ain't treating this. I treat my damn friend.
Insert your cargo items. Amazon Cargo calculates the loading plan for you. You can review the result in interactive 3D model and adjust the load plan manually if you wish to.
Global Industrial.
It's hot in here. We need some pedestal fans to keep us working through this heat.
You can supply that. Global Industrial, the source for industrial equipment and supplies.
So it seems like the jury, to me, everybody already got their mind made up, because something happened today that I think confuses more than it actually helps. Let's go. Okay, U.S. versus Sean Combs, day 34, jury deliberation. Day 2, amid questions on drug distribution in juror 25. So let's go ahead and get it. Judge Subramania, Ms. Comey, can we make sure that things that have been emailed are put in the docket? Better late than never. This is what Inner City Press requested in week 1. Judge Subramania, I'm adopting the government's answer to the drug distribution question. Driscoll, can we just put something on the record about sole possession? This definition of distribution would mislead the jury. Driscoll, but Judge, hold on. Judge, both sides agreed to this definition without objection. So what is it? Driscoll, 1 second. Comey, they're trying to mislead the jury. Yeah, now I see how the feds play. Judge Subramania. They have been specific in their question, and so is the answer. Driscoll, Your Honor, can you just mark our defense proposal as a court exhibit? Judge, yes, adjourned. See, the feds, they don't mind calling these people out, bro. And that's the thing I hate about lawyers, man. They value those relationships, which makes sense, but it also don't make sense to me. 10:26 a.m., another notice emerged from the jury. It has yet to be read out in court, nor has Sean Combs been brought back from the holding cell. For now, lawyers are milling around. Combs' lawyer Shapiro, Driscoll, Steele, Agnifilo, ETLI hunched over a laptop. As Agnifilo, Shapiro, Steele, and Westmoreland huddle back by gallery, AUSA Comey turns and confers with Combs, Xavier Donaldson seated at the middle table. Door to holding cell half opens. U.S. Marshal checking to see if it's time to bring Sean Combs out. 10:46 a.m. Sean Combs has been brought out, and his head lawyer, Mark Agnifilo, is talking with him. Shapiro and Westmoreland are working together on something on Shapiro's laptop. 10:54 a.m. AUSA Emily Johnson goes back and hands a piece of paper over to Sean Combs' lawyers. AUSA Comey goes to sit next to Combs' Xavier Donaldson and shows him something on her laptop. 11:18 a.m. Judge, we received a note from the jury asking for testimony of Cassandra Ventura as to the Intercontinental and Canes incidents and the Daniel Phillip Essex Hotel incident. Daniel Phillip's testimony on that as well. AUSA Comey. We have a disagreement, Judge. First, let me know if either side minds me bringing the jury out and speaking to them. AUSA Comey. We don't see a need. Agnifilo. I confer with Mr. Combs, and we don't see a need either. Judge, As to any future note, let me know. AUSA Johnson. We have a disagreement about the redirect about the Canes incident and the events immediately following. The answer was to what happened when when Sean was angry. It referred to the freak off. It referred to the freak off that occurred upon landing in New York, Judge. I would likely cut it off sooner. Garagos. I have nothing to add. Johnson. We may need to speak with the court about the Intercontinental. Judge. Let my deputy know when you're ready, and I'll come back. Adjourned. 10:58 a.m. Judge. I understand there's an issue to resolve. AUSA Comey. I understand that during the break, the defense came up with an issue about Daniel Phillip, Combs and Avery Donaldson. U.S. wants one or more question and answer in than we do. It's his later thoughts, Comey. The answer is about the Essex Hotel incident, AUSA Johnson. On the Intercontinental Hotel incident, we think it's the day of and not after. Not the days before. That's our position. The defense wants to include Ms. Ventura's IG post of 2024. Combs, Tenny Garagos. We did include several messages from after the Intercontinental incident where they were talking about it. It's regarding the incident. It's important to weigh whether Mr. Combs coerced Ms. Ventura into commercial sex on that day, Judge. The request was for Ms. Ventura's testimony regarding the Intercontinental incident. How does something from 2024 regard it more than things closer in time? Combs Garagos. In 2024, she was responding to the video of the incident and also watching it there. AUSA Johnson. She was asked, do you recall posting on Instagram in May of 2024? She wrote that domestic violence is the issue, but that's not what the jury is asking about. We like more in the, man, bro, he's writing this wrong. We like more in about the Canes incident. Garagos. We think we should start with the first government exhibit about the Intercontinental freak-off. AUSA Johnson. If we could get the laptop back, we can load a searchable PDF. Judge, I agree. Some earlier and later messages should be given. What's left? Johnson. We like to include the photos she took of her injuries and the message from March 5th. Ms. Garagos. Don't those fall into the same category? What would be the objection? Combs Garagos. I have to maintain my objection to these photos. AUSA Johnson. We do not think her testimony is about her Instagram post. Is it relevant? We think it's confusing. See, now he's just typing with freaking typos. So if y'all kind of see, like, bro, typos kind of killing me right now. Judge. I think it can be included. Both sides have reviewed. We'll proceed on that basis. Adjourned. 4:15 p.m. After a long lull, now Combs, Agnifilo, Steele, and Shapiro are back in the courtroom. Meanwhile, the U.S. Attorney's Office belatedly documented emails to the judge. After intercity press requests, they were told to do so at latest at the end of each week. And that's just his doing right there. 4:19 p.m. AUSA hands piece of paper to Combs, Agnifilo, who passes it on. Driscoll confers with Westmoreland. Sean Combs will not be brought into the courtroom from the holding cell. 4:21 p.m. Sean Combs is brought in, stands with his hands in his pockets as Agnifilo speaks to him. His other lawyers come and huddle around him. He sits down. 4:25 p.m. Sean Combs is sitting surrounded by his 8 lawyers who are talking. He is looking down, his hands crossed on his lap. 4:27 p.m. Sean Combs with rubbing his eyes, one with his thumb, the other with his index finger. His lawyers continue talking. Now, Nicole Westmoreland to Xavier Donaldson. 4:30 p.m. Agnifilo goes forward, then returns and hands Sean Combs the piece of paper. He stares at it. 4:32 p.m. After talking to Agnifilo, Sean Combs looks down again, resting his head on his right hand. Judge, we received a note at 4:05 p.m. today. It reads, we have reached a verdict on counts 2, 3, 4, and 5. We are unable to reach a verdict on count 1 as we have jurors on each side. How should we respond? Comey. We are preparing a modified Allen charge. Combs Agnifilo. We propose you tell them to continue deliberating and that you not take the the partial verdict. No modified Allen charge. Judge. With the defense request, I bring in the jury. With the defense request, I bring the jury out to say that? Agnifilo. After conferring with Combs. Yes, Judge. Okay. Email me your proposals. Each side, I'll wait. I can give a modified Allen charge, or at some point, I can tell them they could return a partial verdict. Email me. I'll wait.
I'm Richard Hefner, your host on The Open Mind. I had the honor and the pleasure some months back in talking with today's guest on my other program, From the Editor's Desk. There, however, I had to share him with 2 colleagues and 3 commercial breaks, and I've so much looked forward to this day, when for much longer I might intellectually visit with Elie Wiesel, the distinguished teacher, philosopher, historian of the Holocaust. Mostly I want to ask him about indifference, about the carelessness that informs so much of human history, human behavior. On the editor's desk, Elie Wiesel said that at the end of the World War II, in Paris in 1945, for him after Auschwitz and Buchenwald, he had asked himself the question, why? Well, I asked him whether by now he has discovered the answer. His reply, no, I confess to you that all the questions that I had asked then, they are still open today. I haven't found any answer. I found components to answers. I found, for instance, that what allowed the situation of absolute cruelty to develop was the indifference of so many people. They let it happen. There were a few maniacs of murder, and all around there were others who knew and somehow let it happen. Therefore, in most of my books, I denounce indifference to evil as much as I try to denounce evil. And that's the subject, Mr. Wiesel, that I'd really like to begin with today and ask whether that was a comment about the nature of human nature.
Certain times, of course, some people need indifference.
What do you mean need?
In order to go on living. A person who is always sensitive, always responding, always listening, always ready to receive someone else's pain, how can one live? Indifference then is close to forgetting. One must forget that we die. If not, we wouldn't live. However, there is so much forgetfulness and so much indifference today that we must fight it. We must fight for the sake of our own future. Is this the nature of human beings? It's part of the nature.
It's so interesting to me that you should take such a generous position, as indeed you always have, but it is not a position seemingly of anger. How come?
Oh, if I had had anger, I think I would have been crushed by it. It's like hate. Hate destroys the hater much more than the hater. There were so many reasons after the war and since the war for people such as myself to develop anger and to arm anger that it makes no sense.
It makes no sense, but it is human.
It's also human to fight anger. So I have to choose between 2 options of humanity, and I would rather choose this one. Mind you, if I had felt that it would lead me somewhere, it would give me an answer, it would give humanity an answer, maybe I would have tried it. But maybe it's because of my own weakness. I was afraid of anger. But I never felt hate, nor have I ever felt real anger.
In The Fifth Son, the newest volume, the newest novel, I should say, the newest volume actually is the compilation of Night, Dawn, and Day that the B'nai B'rith put out. In the novel, The Fifth Son, there seems also to be that conflict. I shouldn't say also, you haven't stated a conflict, but there seemed to be a conflict.
Oh, there is a conflict. Of course there is a conflict. After the war, the Germans were afraid. They were not afraid of the Americans, nor were they afraid of the French. Of the Russians, yes, but above all, they were afraid of the Jews. Somehow they felt that the Jews will come back and avenge the blood that was shed. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen. There were Jews in Germany, in the DP camps, and there were no acts of vengeance. There was no killing. I remember 1945, when the war ended. For me, April 11, the Americans came into Buchenwald. I was terribly weak and sick and alone and desperate and numb. We hadn't eaten for so many days. And since April 5th, we were close to death, literally, because the Germans were trying to evacuate the camp. And they would take out 10,000 people a day, ship them off to the unknown. And for some reason, really, I don't know why, we, the children's block, remained behind. And then the Americans came in, And I remember there were some Russian war prisoners. They seized American jeeps and they ran into the neighboring town of Weimar. And they did commit acts of vengeance. As for my friends and myself, there were the Americans there. I'll never forget these Americans, because I remember there were some black soldiers. And these were the first black soldiers I had seen in my whole life. And they were crying. They were crying with such anger. They were angry at the killers much more than we were. And they were throwing whatever they had, the K rations and bread and chocolate, and we didn't know what they were. What we wanted to do first, before eating, is to have a religious service. And we had a religious service. So instead of going and commit acts of anger and wrath and blood and bloodshed, we prayed to a God who had abandoned us. To this day, I don't understand why we did it.
Do you understand why God abandoned you?
Oh no, of course I will not. I won't understand it. I refuse to understand it. And
why do you say you refuse to understand it?
there can be no reason. If there is a reason, it's the wrong one.
You mean then that God did not abandon
Oh, I think he did. I don't know why.
In terms then of what you felt and what you say so many Jews in the camps did feel, how do you relate that to the attitudes of contemporary Israel, to the Palestinians, for instance, to people Israel considers her enemies?
I was in Israel in '67, during the war. I was young, I was a journalist, and I felt I had to be there. I felt I had to be there because the 3 weeks preceding the war, maybe you remember, were of such intensity. We were all convinced that Israel would lose the war. And therefore I went there. And I will not forget, I don't want to forget, the human way in which the Israeli soldiers treated the enemies. They were crying. I was in the desert and I saw how Israeli soldiers gave their water to the Egyptians. There is no hate in the Israeli soldier.
That was true in 1967. Do you think it's true today?
I think it's true today as well, with some exceptions. Unfortunately, there is now a small segment in Israel which is racist, which embarrasses me as a Jew. I don't know whether they and I belong to the same people, whether they and I claim kinship with the same tradition. Judaism cannot be racist. I believe the Jewish tradition is one of compassion, must be one of compassion. But it's not Israel. It's a small segment in Israel. Israel as such, I believe, is still human and humanely inspired.
Mr. Wiesel, there are reports that that segment, though small, is getting larger and larger. Do you feel that those reports are accurate, though hateful perhaps, but accurate?
I don't know. I have not been to Israel for a year or so I don't know. I hope they are not, and if they are, I hope that they are only a passing mood. It would be a terrible blow to not only to Israel as the political entity that it is, but to the history of Israel. To have lived 3,500 years and to come to that conclusion that we have to try racism and there is no other option than violence, and to see in everyone else an enemy, that is not Judaism.
Do you think that perhaps Israel's relation to the United States might be fostering that? In so many of our own travails, there have been so many people who have said, the Israelis could do it, the Israeli soldiers could do this or that. They would know how to handle the enemy.
How do they handle the enemy? What do the Americans think that the Israelis do when they handle the enemy? There is an occupation of territories, and I'm always on the side of the humbled. But I'm a traumatized person. For the reasons that you mentioned yourself, I'm traumatized. I cannot believe that the Israeli occupier is just another occupier. Impossible.
But when you say that you're always on the side of the humble, do you mean on the side of the weak?
On the side of the defeated, of the victim.
Wouldn't then, if someone were watching us today, and Elie Wiesel says he is on the side of the defeated, the victim, say, I can admire, I can embrace this man for the beauty in him, for his feelings, but I must turn, for all many practical reasons, to another philosophy, to survive.
I am also for survival.
You did survive.
Not only I did, personally, it doesn't really matter why I survived, I don't know. I didn't do anything for that. I swear to you, I was too young, I was too weak, I didn't know why. I was never a man of initiative. I survived by chance. But because I survived by chance, I have to give a meaning to my survival. That's really what I believe in. I don't think I should speak about a miracle, because there was no miracle. If God performed a miracle in saving some, that means he refused to perform miracles in condemning the others. I don't go for that. So I'm for surviving. I want the Jewish people to survive. And I want all people to survive. Now, I am naive in thinking that it's possible, meaning it's possible to live in a messianic era when people will live happily, not at the expense of someone else's unhappiness. But at least we must try.
You say that is possible, and you smile.
I smile because you and I belong to the prophetic tradition. We have a past which goes very far. Isaiah and Jeremiah, and these were prophets, these were poets. Jeremiah was also a politician, great politician, suffered for it. But what we remember is not his politics. We remember his poetry. And that goes for Isaiah and for Habakkuk and all of the other prophets. We claim that tradition as our own, as our memory. Here is a tradition that becomes our memory. How can I not believe in it?
But that memory now is fostered and protected and defended and expanded too. Let us not forget that. By those who have a somewhat different approach, considerably a different approach from your own in Israel.
I know. That's not new. You know, we had zealots some 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem. And they were a catastrophe. They brought a catastrophe. Jerusalem was destroyed because of those zealots. I claim kinship with a master, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who left Jerusalem because he wanted to establish schools. And he did establish schools. And he was the pillar on which a Talmud has been built and which kept us alive for 2,000 years. Now again, that doesn't mean that I think that the Jewish people should simply now read the Talmud and not have an army. They have an army, they need an army, because we live in pragmatic conditions and circumstances. But without the Talmud, and without the word, without language, without poetry, we would not have survived.
Do you think that about Americans, not American Jews, about America generally? Would your same hopes and aspirations about the fostering of that tradition of 3,500 years, would it relate to America so powerful and so much involved in the politics of survival, vis-a-vis the Soviet Union, vis-a-vis nuclear armament, etc.?
Yes, I do. When I think of the United States, I'm overtaken by gratitude. That doesn't mean I'm not critical. I am critical. But gratitude is a dominant feeling that I have when thinking of America. Number one, this nation has gone to war twice in its history to fight for other people's freedoms. The First World War, the Second World War. Then after the wars, the economic help, the billions of dollars that we have given to those poor countries, ravaged, destroyed by the enemy. And even now, what would the free world do without us? And we are always ready to help. So I'm grateful to this country. Where else really could a refugee such as myself be sitting with you and talking about history or about philosophy. On the other hand, I'm critical. I think, for instance, what happened here during the war with regard to the Jewish tragedy is unforgivable. The indifference of the United States leadership towards the suffering of the Jewish people in Europe is unforgivable.
What do you think that indifference, as you call it, and that was the word that I started the program with, what was it due to? A lack of knowledge, a lack of information?
Oh no, knowledge was here.
Then what?
I don't know. People who were here tell me that there was so much anti-Semitism then that somehow Roosevelt had to take it into account. He was afraid of acting too far in order not to antagonize the electorate. I am told that even the Congress was against immigration, that the newspapers who knew the stories came in, even the newspapers did not play it up to a sufficient degree. But all these reasons are practical reasons, and I do not accept them. When I know now, and we knew it some 20, 30 years ago already, that Roosevelt and the military and political leadership, and including the Jewish leadership of this country, knew everything that was going on in Europe. In America, they knew about Auschwitz in 1942. I, who was in Hungary, didn't, and in 1944, when the Hungarian Jews came to Auschwitz, they didn't know what it was. Had they known, many of us would have escaped. The Russians were 15 miles away. Now, how can anyone explain that to me? I don't know that. The knowledge was here, but somehow the knowledge did not become an ethical knowledge. It was one thing to know that Jews were being killed, and another thing to know that something had to be done for them. And these two zones were separate.
Today, how separate are the zones for Americans? The zones when we think of Ethiopia, the zones when we think of other peoples who are suffering.
I think the American nation responds. When we saw the Ethiopian pictures on television, there was a response, a very powerful response in the United States. Not enough, mind you, because I think we should have taken American planes. The Air Force should have given 100 airplanes to carry the food to, and doctors and teachers and builders, sociologists, or anything to go and help these people. But still, the American, as an American, he or she helped. I know I was going around schools, high schools, asking children to give $1. And they gave, in the thousands, they gave dollars to the Ethiopian children. That was true about Biafra, that was true with the boat people. The American people responded. Maybe it's a guilt feeling. Maybe because during the Second World War, the gates were closed. That now the boat people are being allowed in. The Hungarian refugees did come in.
You know, I'd like to come back to this question about the nature of human nature. Unless you were to tell me it will be whatever we make it. But given an absence of those who raise our consciousness, given simply a feat before us, whether it is the destruction of the Jews, whether it is Auschwitz, Buchenwald, whether it is what we heard during the war and before about what was happening, without prodding, what do you think you and I and most of the rest of us would do without the training, without the ethical training?
Yes, but what is ethical training? It's teaching. We are teachers. We write and we speak and we teach. That means we train other people. In order for us to be able to train, there's only one very important component, that's memory. As long as we remember, we can train and we can sensitize. You know, I was teaching once at Yale for a year. I remember I asked my first class, what is the opposite of literature?
The opposite of literature.
And they all tried to give me answers, ignorance and so forth, and vulgarity. The real answer is the opposite of literature also is indifference, because it is the opposite of everything else. The opposite of love is not hate, but indifference. The opposite of culture is indifference. Now, therefore, the aim of literature is to sensitize. The aim of culture is to sensitize. The aim of television is to sensitize. So if we remember, we can sensitize. If we don't, then we are no longer sensitive either. And then...
But you see, you describe, and I feel compelled to ask you to prophesy. You're in a tradition of prophets. What would be your assumptions as to where we are going in terms of our sensitivity to suffering, in terms not of our indifference, but of our devotion, our concern?
Prophets ceased to prophesy some 2,500 years ago. They are no longer prophets. Still, if I had to foresee the future, I would be terribly pessimistic. I'm pessimistic because of the nuclear threat. And to me, although I never compare anything to Auschwitz, nor do I compare Hiroshima to Auschwitz, we should never do that. But I think one is a consequence of the other. Auschwitz paved the way for Hiroshima.
As a response?
Not a response, as a possibility. It's possible to kill a community of people. It's possible. Now, today, there are so many nuclear weapons. And fortunately, for the moment, the big powers, I think, are responsible. They won't use them. But one day, smaller nations will get hold of them, and we know they will. What then? Just imagine a Khomeini with nuclear powers. But he would use them right away, not against Israel, by the way, but against Iraq. Imagine Idi Amin 10 years ago with nuclear weapons. And that is really my fear. But at the same time, I have the feeling that something is happening in our country. It's happening among the young people. A certain awareness, a moral awareness. So I'm oscillating between ultimate despair and necessary hope.
Perhaps an unfair question. If you felt just precisely the opposite, would you tell me so?
Absolutely. I belong now to a generation, I don't play with words anymore.
So that this touch of optimism or hopefulness is genuine?
It is, of course, but it's also an existential leap, as you know.
Seemingly.
I have no choice. I must. That means because the despair is so strong, I must fight it. In order to fight it, I must cling to some hope.
That attitude, is that what you think produces progress, let's say? That existential jump?
What do we call progress? If it's technological progress, I think our generation suffers from it. We go so far in technology that we remain behind in morality or in philosophy. Just see the discrepancy between what we did in science and what we did in thought, in metaphysics, or even in poetry or in art. So what is progress? My feeling, of course, progress must be translated in human terms, in words of wisdom, compassion. And there we did not make much progress.
Do you think that your words at the time, turning the clock back now, of Bitburg, of the president's visit, your very, very active, perhaps not political is not the word, but your intense ethical involvement in these questions, were they Wisselish, or were they, do you in any way regret having moved from your study? You're a teacher, but having moved from your everyday work at writing?
In a way, yes, because I told you before that I lost 6 weeks. For the first time in my life, I didn't study, nor did I write for 6 weeks. And now I have to catch up these 6 weeks.
Which was the indulgence?
It's too much. It means I realized the importance, the historic importance of the event. That we must do something, we must speak up, because it was a watershed. And even today, I think it was a watershed. And therefore we had to do something, but it didn't help much. But still, a few people listened, a few people learned, a few people felt that now they must learn more. I don't regret it.
But you see, that's why I ask when I jokingly, and I have no right to joke about it, ask which is the indulgence I really meant. Is the avoidance, had the avoidance of that kind of involvement been the indulgence, or was the activism the indulgence?
I understand you.
Which way will you go now?
Oh, I go back to my study, to my writing. I am not good as an activist, Monica. It's not my role.
You were very good.
No, I'm not really. I'm not good for me.
When you came into this study, into the studio, I shouldn't say study, maybe that's a slip that I should not make. It is clear to me that so many people remembered you not just as the author and as the historian of the Holocaust, as the moralist, as a person who took a very strong role at Bitburg.
Well, I don't regret it, but it's really not something I like to do. I really like better to be with my students in my classroom, in my study, and read and read and read and write.
Where is it written that you should be able to do what you want to do?
It's not. I don't. The fact is, I'm sitting here with you speaking
Indeed.
on television.
That's what makes me wonder whether you have not felt some compulsion to do something more, to be involved more.
No, really, I would lie if I were to say I felt a compulsion. I don't take myself that seriously, not in this respect. However, again, once I did it, I felt I had to do it right, not to say things I will regret later. And I feel that I did not say anything that I regret now. I tried to endow every word that I said with a certain meaning, which is mine, and with respect to other people's words.
I think not only do you show that respect, but I think the world shows you that respect, feels it very deeply as I do, and I want to thank you for joining me today, Elie Wiesel. And thanks too to you in the audience. I hope that you'll join us again next time here on The Open Mind. Meanwhile, as an old friend used to say, good night and good luck.
Ever spot something great online, like the perfect light jacket, then forget where you found it? With Recall currently in preview on Copilot Plus PCs, those moments are easy to recover. Recall is an AI-powered feature that works like your PC's memory. It captures snapshots of your screen activity so you can search and find anything you've seen before and then reopen to pick up where you left off. Just type a simple phrase like green light jacket, and Recall shows matching snapshots from your browsing history. No need to remember exact words or file names. Privacy is built in. You choose whether to turn Recall on, and you can check its status anytime from the taskbar or system tray. With Recall, your Copilot Plus PC helps you find and re-engage with what matters, right when you need it.
Break. 4:54 p.m. In the well of the courtroom, everyone but Donaldson is in their seat, waiting. Sean Combs is leaning back, his legs crossed. He does not look happy. 5:01 p.m. Judge. I received each side's proposal. Mr. Agnifilo, your proposal there is not much there. Combs Agnifilo. We are not remotely at the place where the jury needs more to deliberate efficiently. They are remarkably efficient. They already have 4 verdicts. Judge. I wouldn't call the government's proposal an Allen charge. It reminds the jury of the instruction I previously gave on the duty to deliberate. I could simply recite from the jury charge. And then it says right here, it's just showing you what it says. Again, your verdict must be unanimous, but you are not bound to surrender your honest convictions concerning the effect or weight of the evidence for the mere purpose of returning a verdict or solely because the opinion of other jurors. Each of you must make your own decision about the proper outcome of this case based on your consideration of evidence and your discussions with your fellow jurors. No juror should surrender his or her conscientious beliefs for the purpose of returning a unanimous verdict. Combs Agnifilo. We are not at the point yet. I'm not saying we wouldn't be at the point on Thursday, July 3rd, or Monday. Let's wait and see. I'm putting stock in that they have reached verdicts on 4 counts. Judge, I'm going with that, but I may give more later. Judge, I could tell them that they could return on July 3rd. We could arrange that. What do the parties think? Comey. We like to give them the option to deliberate on the 3rd. Comes at Niflo. 1 second, Your Honor. Judge, yes. Mind you, today is the 1st. Comes at Niflo. Our preference is that you don't tell them now about Thursday. The downside is that the jurors might feel rushed to reach a verdict to avoid the Thursday issue. Let them deliberate tomorrow. You could ask at the end of tomorrow. And I agree with that already. Because, yeah, if you kind of telling me, like, bro, look, if y'all want to go to third, like, nah, bro, we got all the time in the world. This is important. This is a man's life. This is justice if you believe that he's actually guilty. So y'all don't really want to do that part. So the defense would have no objection to them deliberating on July 3rd. Agnifilo. No objection. If they want to. Judge. Okay, let's bring the jury back out. All rise. Judge. Welcome back. I received your note that you have reached verdicts on counts 2 through 5. I asked you to continue deliberating. Discuss away your respective opinions dispassionately and follow my instructions on the law. I ask you to return to the jury room if you decide you are done for the day. Send me another note and I'll bring you back out at the end of the day. Jurors leave. Judge. Everyone can go back to doing what they were doing. Break. That was an hour ago. Judge. We received a note that the jurors have concluded for today and will resume tomorrow. We'll bring them back out. All rise. Jurors fall back in. Judge. Very briefly. Thank you. Tomorrow, go directly into the jury room. Keep an open mind. Do not watch or read about this case. We'll see each other tomorrow. All rise. Jurors leave. Judge, anything? No and no. Adjourned.
Hey, yo, you. Can you subscribe and turn on that bell, too? Because when you do, you're helping unbiased, independent news.
All right. So what are we doing? What are we seeing here? If you watched yesterday's video, which I thank you all for tuning in on that video, we seen what I believe happened was this. Count 1 is just basically RICO. R-I-C-O, right? That's it, right? And so what I believe happened was somebody basically was like, yeah, I don't agree that a RICO was found. And that person, which you find out to be a man, was like, since I don't see this right here, we're not going to proceed forward. Because if I'm saying there's no RICO, I don't believe there's a RICO, we don't need to get to the other counts. We don't need to get to the arson, the kidnapping, the drug trafficking, any of that stuff. I believe that's what it was. So when they talked about it, it's like, no, that doesn't matter. Because though you may see the RICO count not count, we can still go down and find 2 more and still find him guilty of RICO. That's how I interpret it. Now, a lawyer can come out and say, nah, Setting Nash, you're actually wrong. I'm not going on anybody else's thing as far as what we need to see, unless they are on Twitter where they are just putting out statements. Now, the biggest thing that I want everybody to understand is this. We don't really know what the heck is going on. We don't. What you talking about, Nash? Everybody who's speaking, myself included, we're all guessing. So if it comes out that people think that they know something, in all candor, they don't, we don't, and everybody should basically sit back and relax. To me, to have a freaking to have this fast of a verdict for an almost 6-week trial means your mind is already made up.
Are you feeling stuck with $10,000 or more in debt and all the interest that comes with it? Try National Debt Relief, as seen on the Wall Street Journal podcast.
I didn't even know how I was going to buy food for my kids. I felt immediate relief.
I had over $36,000 in debt. If I would have just made the minimum payments, it would have taken me 59 years to pay off. I knew I wasn't going to be able to get out of debt myself.
National Debt Relief specializes in helping people who are struggling with $10,000 or more in credit card debt, medical bills, or personal loans.
I felt immediate relief. They had a plan for me.
Getting started is easier than you probably think. Simply click the link on this video and answer a few simple questions. Let National Debt Relief take it from here. Get started today. Your future self will thank you.
Bauer tools give you the confidence to take on challenging home projects.
With hundreds of corded and cordless tools and accessories, Bauer is ready to deliver. Whatever you do, do it for less. Only at Harbor Freight.
It just does. In my opinion. It just sounds like everybody had their mind made up, and now that one juror is the one that they're trying to bully. This just, to me, it just seems as though they're trying to bully the other juror, because the counts that they're talking about, 2 through 5, is basically the Mann Act, right? Basically, sex trafficking, and did you find that? Yay or nay for Jane and for Cassie. Then they go back and they look at the other counts. And I believe that's where we're sitting at with this. Now, to me, I'm screaming it's just gonna be a mistrial, it's gonna be a mistrial, it's gonna be a mistrial, it's gonna be a mistrial. But the more I think about it, they may not find out, or they may not agree on certain things. If we're going to be critical, I think it's more likely that Jane would be the one that was sex trafficked and Cassie wasn't. And some people are gonna be like, nah, remember this, remember that. You can make a case that Cassie more so was more inviting than Jane was. Because we heard the audio of her threatening people and all this stuff and everything, and her staying there for 11 years would really draw people back. As said in the last video, bro, it's not like we seen Cassie essentially get told this, and this, and then she still stayed and she was putting out secret messages and all this stuff. Like R. Kelly stuff was basically, he had them ladies there and they try to act like they saved them, pardon me. Whether you agree or disagree, that's completely up to you. I won't give any opinion towards that. Cassie was already gone for years after that. So it's like, all right. But on the Jane part, you could say, yeah, bro, she was introduced to this stuff and thought it was gonna be fun, and then whatever the hell. But I do think one of the things that happened that was kind of interesting was her admitting she whipped out her titties while everybody else was partying and freaking in this freaking room. And she basically got jealous of all this stuff of like these prostitutes, male escorts, male hoes, these male hoes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't see it. I can't see sex trafficking. I just can't. But if he's found guilty, Nash, what do you think he'll be found guilty of? Kidnapping. And because it's so muddy, and because I don't believe that they did a good job with it as far as the drug trafficking goes, I think he gets found guilty on those two, which completes the RICO. Kidnapping and drug trafficking. If they come to a unanimous decision on 2 acts, I believe those are the 2 acts right there. I don't think the Cassie and Jane stuff, they actually all agree on that. But it's even crazier because it just sounds like, bro, they are screwing this dude over with the due process part. Bro, this should take at least a week. This should take a week. Because what you're supposed to be doing is scrutinizing everything. That's what it is. Now, some of y'all will go, well, how could they not have a made up mind? Well, the judge said that what you heard actually is not necessarily guilt. It's up to you to criticize and scrutinize everything that comes there. So how the hell do you do that in a matter of almost not even 2 days technically? Today would be the first day, in my opinion. Not yesterday, because the judge still had to talk for what, 2 hours? Then they were sitting there, then they came up, then like, come on, bro, I'm not seeing it. But y'all let me know y'all thoughts on this, man. Share to keep your people aware. Subscribe, turn on the bell, stay notified. Hit that like button like you like something. HNO, help Nash out, man. Let's see if we can get this to 7K likes. Bruh, we going up over here, man, and I appreciate you all. If you disagree, then you disagree. Please do not take this channel as a channel that you can't be like, man, nah, hell nah. You wrong as hell. You can do that. It's fine. I'll catch you on the next one.
Make it cold.
With AC Pro, anyone can recharge their car's AC. Like a pro. Be a pro with AC Pro.
However you book your flight, first check Kayak to search and compare flight prices from hundreds of sites to find a great deal.
Big developments in the case of Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, the man accused of orchestrating the murder of rap icon Tupac Shakur back in the 1990s. All these years later, the former gang leader is behind bars in Las Vegas and is insisting the case be thrown out. And he is implicating another music legend who's making headlines, Sean Diddy Combs. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis is said to be behind one of the most infamous killings in history. Tupac Shakur, the 90s rap superstar, was gunned down while riding in a car with Suge Knight after the Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand. And over the years, there have been multiple investigations into Tupac Shakur's murder, but there has been one man who has seemed to implicate himself in the assassination again and again and again. Dwayne Davis, also known as Keefe D. By the way, spelled sometimes with 2 F's, sometimes with 2 E's, even sometimes with a Y. Gets a little bit confusing, but Keefe D. Now, Davis was reportedly the leader of a sect of the Crips street gang in Compton, California that dealt in drug sales and trafficking. Davis eventually did time in prison on drug charges in the late 90s, but since getting out, he has been more open about his apparent involvement in Shakur's death. Davis released his own tell-all book. It's called Compton Street Legend, Notorious Keefe D's street-level accounts of Tupac and Biggie murders, death row origins, Suge Knight, Puffy Combs, and crooked cops. And he started granting interviews with YouTubers who wanted the inside scoop on what happened on that night back in 1996 out in Las Vegas. So Davis and several members of his entourage apparently attended the Mike Tyson boxing fight. But afterward, in the casino, Shakur had attacked Davis's nephew, Orlando Anderson. The fight had apparently been sparked by a previous beef over an alleged stolen neck chain. So the men eventually separated, the two groups went on their way, but Anderson, Davis, and others that were with them were reportedly still pretty heated over what had just happened. And later that night, allegedly, their plan was to target Shakur and Knight. And Knight, of course, is the head of, or was the head of Death Row Records, as they were all stopped at a traffic light. This is what happened. Now, in an interview with the Art of Dialogue channel, Davis said he was in the front passenger seat that night with DeAndre Big Dre Smith and Anderson in the back seat of the rented Cadillac. And what happens next? Who fired the shots? Take a listen.
Dre, he was the one that was supposed to shoot, Tupac and Suge, but he got scared, right?
No, he didn't really get scared. He wasn't ready for that. They was youngsters, man. Kids.
But once again, y'all Crips, right? So he should be used to that, right, Dre? So why was he
wasn't ready for that. Everybody got a role, man. Everybody ain't killers. Everybody, you know what I'm saying? Everybody ain't gonna kill.
So
everybody
Dre,
ain't
he
with
wasn't
that.
a shooter?
No.
Okay, but he was the one that was supposed to shoot up Tupac and Suge, but for some reason he wasn't ready for it, so he gave the gun to Orlando, right?
Something like that, yeah.
And Orlando is the shooter. He's the known shooter. Everybody know Orlando Anderson was a shooter. So Dre got cold feet. He didn't want to do it. He gave the gun to Orlando, and Orlando shot Tupac and Suge.
Yeah, he did his thing, yeah.
Now, let's be clear about something. Anderson has always denied that he was the killer. In fact, he died just a few years after Shakur in another shooting. The other men in the Cadillac, DeAndre Smith and the driver, Terry Brown, they are also both dead. But Davis told a lot of this information to Los Angeles and Las Vegas investigators as well. And this is after he apparently became a confidential informant for a task force that was looking into the murder of Christopher Wallace, also known as Biggie Smalls and the notorious B.I.G. By the way, we're about to talk about Diddy. We did a whole separate sidebar episode on how Sean Combs' former bodyguard came out recently, spoke on a documentary, and saying that Sean Combs could have been involved in the murder of Christopher Wallace. I encourage everybody to check it out if you're interested. But then going back to Tupac, we go to September of 2023. So this is 27 years after Shakur's death. And Davis was arrested near his home outside of Las Vegas and taken into custody. And since then, after he's been charged with the murder of Tupac Shakur, he and his legal team have been working to get him out of jail and to get his case thrown out. Now, we can say definitively he has lost both of those battles. He has pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder. He's supposed to go to trial in March, but I want to explain a little bit more about this. So earlier this month, Davis's defense team filed a motion to dismiss the case. And as part of his argument, he is pointing the finger, seemingly, at Sean Diddy Combs as the one who really is responsible for Shakur's death. Yeah, this is one of those stories that we've been constantly trying to keep an eye out for, bring you updates as they develop. And for that, I gotta call out our amazing sponsor, Morgan & Morgan, because their support helps us to keep on doing this. But here's the deal. If you're injured, Morgan & Morgan, the exclusive personal injury law firm of Law and Crime, America's largest injury law firm, that may be who you want in your corner. You know why they have over 1,000 attorneys? Because they win a lot. In the past few months, Morgan & Morgan secured a $29 million verdict for a bicyclist in Philadelphia, a $2.7 million verdict for a car accident victim in Florida, and not to mention $5.6 million for a car crash victim in Georgia after insurance offered that client $0. And even if you think your case isn't worth millions of dollars, why not start a claim and fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan, they make it so simple because you can start a claim from your phone in just 8 clicks. So if you're injured, you can easily start a claim at forthepeople.com/LC sidebar.
Why you want to play detective?
Because no one else is.
Isn't the killer in custody? The suspect is in custody.
Are you gonna find who did it and get me out of here?
Yes, I am.
My name is Sarah Sherman Samuel.
Hi, I'm Jake Arnold.
I'm Anili Parker.
My name is Kali Krishni.
And this is my collection.
And this is my collection.
And this is our collection.
And this is my collection.
Lulu in Georgia.
Now, at the time of Shakur's death, Combs was beginning his meteoric rise to the top of the rap world. He had started Bad Boy Records, now called Bad Boy Entertainment, and of course,
Okay, see ya! Hey!
Cut! Cuckoo! Hey, I got a question for you. I've come up with a fun new game. It's been way too long, Goku.
Sure! See you later, Zenny! Yo!
I just want to see if I got something real quick. Hold on.
Oh, hey, Dad.
Hey!
This is what you wanted to watch, right?
Want to blow off some steam with a little shopping? Well, did you find something you want? Impressive! You've got a good eye. Wish my husband would take me shopping a little more often. Impressive! You've got a good eye. Wow! You must be almost as rich as me! I know. Decisions. Wow! You must be almost as rich as me!
Yo! This whole place hasn't changed a bit. Okay, see you around.
It's good to see you, Dad.